Now, I already did a review of the MG4 earlier, which you might have seen, but that was a pre-production model, and I even drifted that. Oh, ow. And you can watch that full review down below, but that was an entry-level trim of the MG4. But right here, I've got the full production version. So this right here is the third most expensive MG4 you can buy right now. Above this is the bigger battery pack, the 77 kilowatt hour battery long-range version of the MG4. And then above that, you have the MG4 X Power, which is like the hot hatch version of this electric car. But this one right here is the MG4 64 Essence. So it's the most expensive version of the 64 kilowatt hour battery pack you can buy. And what I found astonishing is that you're getting the top spec model of MG4's standard range lineup for under $50,000 drive away. Now, throughout this review, you're going to be asking yourself, what are the compromises? And to be honest, there are few. And you'd think there would be a lot because you're spending a lot less money compared to something like a Tesla Model 3. But here you're getting 435 kilometers of range per charge, which is a WLTP figure according to MG. And when I filled this thing up to 100%, the car indicated it was very close to that figure. So I'm very impressed with the standard range offering that you're getting from this price point. Now, what else you're getting? You're getting a sculpted bonnet, you're getting LED lights, you're getting more LED lights down here. Now, something I do find a bit compromising is there is no front storage up here. Where brands like Tesla and Polestar and Volvo are able to find storage, MG has not been able to, but at least they allow you to open up the bonnet, unlike brands like Mercedes-Benz, which don't even let you do that. These 18-inch alloy wheels, which have a premium aero cover on them. You're getting black side mirror caps with cameras. There's a 360-degree parking camera system on this model here. You're getting a black roof up top. I really like all the black trim you're getting around the windowsills, and you're also getting a lot of plastic down below. You're also getting keyless locking and unlocking, which I found to be very useful as well. And you do get buttons on both sides of the doors, which you didn't get on the MG5 I just recently reviewed. Now, something I will note is that this gloss black plastic panel right here is susceptible to micro scratches when you're washing it, which is a bit annoying. So I wish it was made out of some other material that wouldn't show scratches as easily as this does. Now, other things that are worth noting would be the fact that this car has a 50-50 weight distribution split, which means it should be good at handling, which we'll test in just a minute. It's also rear wheel drive only. So the electric motor is found at the back, which is pretty unique for a hatchback. And finally, the battery is capable of heating, which is quite good. So it can precondition itself to keep the range up in colder climates and also help you charge just a bit faster. Now, talking about charging, you're going to charge the MG4 from the rear left of the car here. You have DC fast charging available, and this also is capable of vehicle to load, meaning that you can discharge its battery to power items external to this car using its battery and charge, which is quite cool. Now, this is a manual door as well because other brands are using electronic openings, so at least if you are a bit annoyed by that, you have a manual opening right here. And this car is capable of charging from 10 to 80% from a 150 kilowatt DC fast charger in just 28 minutes. So to be honest, that's not that bad of a charge time for a car that costs just over $50,000 as you see it here. Now, here at the back, there's some pretty cool design elements. I really love this large light bar, which actually has some lighting elements on top of it, which looks really unique and really quite cool. And you also get this cool split aero design up top for your rear spoiler. Now, the only downside to this is that while it looks cool and is functional, it actually does add a bit of drag. So it is a bit of negative on your overall range, but it's only by a small amount. And you do get a rear wiper at the back, which some EVs are going without. Now, the MG4 is a hatchback and it has a manual hatch as well, and it boasts 363 liters of boot space back here. It's not class leading, but it's still very functional. You have some side little pockets here with some netting, which is very useful. And underneath the boot floor, you just get a tire repair kit. There's no spare tire, as is tradition with electric cars in 2023. You get seats that fold down in a 60-40 split. Again, very useful. And you do have this modular floor, which means you can raise and lower it if you want to make the floor equal with the entrance of the boot here. Now, unlike some other car brands, MG is going to include your home charging cable, and you do get a hard cargo cover here at the back so people can't look into your boot when you close it. Now getting into the back of the MG4 actually isn't too bad at all, but at 5'11", I feel like my feet, my knees, and my head are a little bit close to everything. So if you're over 6 foot, it's gonna feel a little bit tight. But good thing is that there's a flat load floor going through the back here because it's an electric car, which means the middle seat should feel pretty decent for any passengers that have to be in it momentarily. Now, the annoying thing is that we only get one USB port here in the rear and we don't get a center armrest. But what is interesting is that we do get cloth and faux leather seats with ISOFIX points in them, and that you have decent bolstering, and we do have some storage pockets here on the back of the seats and also 2 mat pockets on either seat as well. And we do have storage in the side doors here. Now, everything feels nice and solid and well built, which is a good thing, but there are lots of scratchy plastics if that's something that annoys you. And then you have windows in the back that are automatic. They go down all the way, which I really like because you get nice amounts of air and a nice big window back here as well. But something that sort of annoys me is that this is an orange car and you can't opt out this blue stitching here in these seats, which I just feel clashes just a little bit. Now you get the same seat material up front as well and more blue stitching. You get a 2-spoke heated steering wheel here. You get a 7-inch gauge cluster, which is really quite cool because on the left-hand side, it shows you what the car can see just like a Tesla. So it'll show you if you can see cyclists, motorcyclists, trucks, cars. I really like that quite a lot. And also on the right side, you have all your customizable information and you can use it to see what you're playing on your media or any sort of car controls. And in the middle is where your speedo and also your battery percentage is going to be, and you have vital information running below that as well. But I like how simple, and there's also no binnacle that goes around this gauge cluster here. We had a 10.25-inch touchscreen here, which has plenty of functionality in it. Like it has things like what sort of weather's going on. You can have your charging information, like charging and discharging the battery. You also have your navigation with built-in as well, so you can see where the charges are on your navigation. You can feed video through here as well, so if you want to watch videos on your screen here, you can via a USB. And yeah, it's a very useful screen. I really like it, although you're going to be a little bit annoyed if you don't like the fact that all your climate controls are thrown in here. But you do have physical buttons for your volume controls, which is quite good, and you have physical controls for your defrosters as well. And you get a wireless charging pad up here with some cable management, which is very useful. We get a rotary shift dial here and a little MG electric badge up top on top of this floating console here, and down below you get a USB Type A and Type C and a 12-volt socket as well, and you get little coffee cup holders as indicated by the little coffee cup symbol. And we get more storage here with a sliding cover to keep things in place. We get a little bit of a netting as well, and we also get a decent center console here as well. We get gloss black plastic running across the top of the dashboard and lots of soft touch materials in all the right places, but there's still plenty of hard plastics as well. But overall, love the interior. I love the fact this also has a telescopic steering wheel, which is something that irks me on previous MG cars that didn't have this. Now, if you've been a bit apprehensive about buying an MG because of how it looks and feels, I can tell you that the MG4 feels like a step above in the right direction away from all of that. Now, something that is worth noting is that you do get an electronic seat adjustment for the driver, but I went to adjust it backwards and it wasn't doing it, but instead I had to push from the bottom of one of the toggles, which was kind of annoying and something I would probably get looked at if I bought this car, because that just feels like a bit of a fault because I can't put the seat back right now, as you can hear me try to do, but if I push from the bottom, it does it, which is kind of weird. Now, you do get manual adjustment here for the passenger seat, so that extra money isn't going to give you an electric adjustment for the passenger, but only just for the driver. Now, something that also is sort of annoying is the fact this doesn't have a button to start it up. Instead, you jump in, it detects you're sitting on the seat, and then you press your foot on the brake, and you'll hear drive system ready. Now, when you jump into this car, it does take a little while to get adjusted, so I feel like I have to pump the brake a little bit, and it's just not as instantaneous as something like Volvo or Tesla has with their buttonless system. So I just wish that was something that MG would iron out to make it a bit more efficient when you jump in to start and put this car into gear. So the rear-wheel drive setup of the MG4 means we get a single electric motor, which puts out 250 Newton-meters of torque, 125 kilowatts, which is around 168 horsepower. And yes, it's sending power exclusively just to the rear wheels. So once we get going in the MG4, this is actually a wildly impressive car. MG4 is capable of going 0 to 100 in 7.2 seconds, claimed by MG. So in 3, 2, 1, we can get going, things wind up a little bit, and then it starts to pull along. And thanks to that instant torque, it feels a lot faster than that 7.2 second claim 0 to 100. But yeah, it doesn't feel lightning quick either. Now, it's rear wheel drive, so it gives you a very unique driving profile, which means you can sort of hook it through corners a bit and it hooks in, and the front wheels just have to do the steering. That's it. And it's quite engaging, actually. More in that in a second. So basically what we've got ourselves in is a battery packed below the body, and the body sits on top. Now, something I did sort of notice is that lightweight body on top of a heavy chassis can create like a bit of a boxing bag effect, where it feels like all the weight's at the bottom and it's light on the top, so it sort of jostles around a tiny bit on some uneven surfaces, but it's mainly quite still in here. And it's also really quiet. There's no fake sounds or anything like that, which is quite nice, and I do appreciate that a lot. Now, as we go through here, we're just cruising along, and we've got a nice seating position, great view out, and I'm a big fan of the actual ergonomics of this electric car. Now, we have a couple of different drive modes here. We have snow mode, which basically tells the car how to handle in a low grip environment, so that's good because this thing can break traction quite easily on loose surfaces. You've got eco mode, normal, sport, and custom. Now, I'm just going to be jumping between normal and sport. So normal is what I'm driving in most of the time, but you can jump this thing into sport and you get a bit of a heavier steering feel, and you sort of have a bit more responsiveness from that electric motor, and it's actually quite a lot of fun. Now, I found the base model to be a lot of fun, but this just feels a little bit more tightly put together, so there's not many rattles or squeaks happening in here, and it just feels a little bit faster, actually. It feels really quite nice. Now, you've also got one pedal drive mode available to you as well, which I'll turn on now, and it does quite a harsh deceleration, and it's a little bit too aggressive for my liking, but yeah, I think that just is a small bit of fine tuning, where I find something like Volvo and Tesla to have a really nice one-for-one setup. This feels like you let off and then the car starts decelerating, so it feels a little bit delayed, which can feel a little bit more uncomfortable. And you can adjust your regen as well, but the thing with the MG4 is that it won't allow you to regen if you've got a full battery, so you have to wait for it to deplete before you start are able to use your regen. Now, handling is wild. 50-50 weight distribution. I really like how they really focus on the handling of this thing, because modern day electric cars, there's some that just get a battery and a motor, and there's even some modern day MGs that are like this, electric ones, and they just chuck in a battery and a motor in a petrol powered platform. Now, this is a dedicated electric platform, which means you've got no compromises for a petrol motor, which means we get a nice flat chassis and a nice flat wide wheelbase as well, so it feels very planted, and it means you can make quick maneuvers and you feel very confident in this EV, which feels really quite nice. Now, the brakes in here are all right. It just feels like a lighter EV as well. It doesn't feel too heavy, and the responsiveness from the motor is awesome. It makes for a really nice daily drive, and it's a nice gradual feed of power, so it means that people on the inside shouldn't feel so car sick if power's fed on quickly, because it sort of rolls on the power, which is nice for a slightly slower EV and something that's not a rocket ship in terms of something like the MG4 X-Power will be. Now, in terms of the suspension setup as well, it's really comfortable in here. I don't have a problem with the suspension at all. It's great for daily driving, and through corners it holds just fine as well. But if you want a more aggressive setup, you'll have to buy the MG4 X-Power. Now, I've just had so much fun driving this thing. The only complaints I will have are these buttons here on the steering wheel. They're pretty annoying because they're not labeled, so you sort of have to guess what they do when you're activating your cruise control or your media controls, which is just a little bit annoying. I would have liked to see an actual, maybe just dedicated hard buttons for the cruise control and volume controls on your steering wheel. Instead, they try to make them like multiple use little toggles, but they can be a little bit confusing. Now, the speaker system in here is okay. It's not the best. It's not as good as a Tesla Model 3 system, but that's fine because you're not really chasing that when you're saving yourself a bit of money, but it is worth noting. Now, this thing has a great turning circle as well, which you can really appreciate, and it's really easy to park thanks to that 360-degree parking camera on this Essence model. And overall, it is just such an easy electric car to live with. I really like the display for the driver. That driver's gauge cluster's got a lot of information for you there. You don't really feel like you're ever worried about range either. This battery does not chew through its range, so I've been driving all morning and I've still got like 72%. I started with 100, so I've got 283 kilometers of range, and that's more than enough. So this would be something you could probably comfortably do some road trips out of a major city in, and that would be just fine. And the fact it's got a good fast charging setup means you shouldn't be waiting there for too long either. Now, this thing does have an included EV trip planner because it's the Essence model, which means you can use the inbuilt navigation, but a lot of people are probably just going to use Google Maps or any sort of third-party apps using Apple CarPlay, which does require you to use a wire to connect, but at least this does have Apple CarPlay, unlike a Tesla. Now, these seats are pretty comfortable as well. They hold you in very nicely, and I don't have a problem with them at all. If you are a little bit afraid of cloth, don't be. These are very comfortable and they breathe very nicely, and they are heated in this Essence model. Now going from 60 kilometers to 80 kilometers an hour, this is how quick this thing can accelerate. And there we go, it's pretty good. This thing cruises very nicely. Activating cruise control is easy to do as well once you figure it out. The only thing that irks me the most about this is just getting in and out of this thing with the buttonless start. I just found it a little bit annoying and just a little bit frustrating, which is just something that doesn't feel necessary. It doesn't feel like we have to ruin a great car by having a clumsy buttonless start. It means when I hop in and I sit down the seat, it should be ready to go, but it's not. It's never fully ready. And I have to wait for it to get ready by pumping the brake pedal to let it know that I'm here sitting in it ready to go before it turns on. And that's just a really frustrating element, because I think this is a brilliant EV that's let down by a small little interaction that can make all the difference for people who might get into this and go, that's a bit annoying, won't buy that. I'll buy the one with the push button start or with the actual buttonless start that works a lot more seamlessly than this. I just feel like in order to make it work, all I need to do is just have the key in proximity to the car before you unlock it and just get it sort of started up. And then once you sit down, put your foot on the brake, it should be ready to go. But for some reason, all that process happens when you sit in the seat for the first time and close the door. The MG4 is a car that I would actually recommend to myself. If I was in the market for an electric car, I would look at buying one of these. If my budget allowed it, I would probably go and buy a Tesla Model 3 still, because I've always liked that as an electric car. But to be honest, if push came to shove and the price was the final determining figure, I wouldn't be so mad to jump into this instead of a Tesla Model 3. And here's why. First of all, it's pretty decent to charge. The battery tech in the MG4 is pretty impressive, and also the fact that you can discharge it using vehicle to load is also quite good, and the fact that it has battery preconditioning is a major plus. I also like the fact it's a rear-wheel drive. It drives very well. It has decent tech on the inside. I like the screen, the infotainment, the packaging. I like the materials. I like the styling. All those things, because of how much this thing costs, go a long way. And I really do think this punches above how much this actually costs. So if you are looking for an affordable electric car that isn't something full of compromises, well, the MG4 is something I would put at the top of my list and compare it to everything else. And that price point is just so sharp, and the fact this thing has a 7-year warranty just makes it one of the best electric cars I think you can buy today. Now, thank you so much for watching. Make sure to review your own car on productreview.com.au. And if you want to see more car content, make sure you follow us here on Instagram and TikTok using @ProductReviewCars. My name's Cameron. I'll see you in the next one.